episode 656. That Hey Now is, of course, our homage to Howard Stern. And I wanted to say I have added one homage to my comedy set that I'm doing to Bob Newhart.
Yes.
And
that's a reference nobody in that audience is ever going to get.
I wonder.
I mean, like, not a rep, but like you can use his thing and nobody would even know where it's from. Nobody.
Well, now that I've said it, people will be on the lookout. Yeah. But it is a famous joke, but I'm tailoring it to our audience of challenge.
I love it. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Okay. First up, we got to read a review.
Reading a review. Good for me and you.
Good for me and you.
There, I just made up our own theme song.
Thank you to the people that are trying to offset the guys that were mean to us.
Thank you, guys. Gals, probably.
Mega Waffle says...
Good name.
She's leaving a 5-star review to offset the stupid 1-star reviews mentioned in the most recent episode. Or maybe second most recent. She's like overthinking it. I love. Anyways.
Classic brain candy.
These are the two smartest, most honest, most relatable women in the podcast world. I've been a listener since episode 12. Wow.
Wow. Good. She skipped over our few first ones. We're just getting the hang of it. Smart gal. And will support Susie's negativity and subsequent teasing of Sarah's camp endeavors for as long as they have a platform. I love you both and all you do for women. Thank you, Mega Waffle. Oh, I love it. Suze, what does it feel like to be a female icon?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Sarah.
What does it feel to be
Thank you
a
for
role
asking
model
me.
for all women out there?
You know what? Doesn't it ever strike you that we have human beings that will listen to us talk about the stuff that we happen to really care about, and we get to make a living doing it?
It feels super awesome, and I feel so lucky that I found, like, you're going to hate I'm not even going to say that word. It's a community. It's the TRIBE word that we're not going to use anymore. But it's a community, a network.
It's so nice.
Yes.
Yeah,
and you know,
book club,
it's so beautiful.
Our doc club, and then all of our listeners and our patrons. 3 cheers for
love
you.
You guys so much.
We do. We love you.
It's so fun. Everybody knows how to have a good laugh. Everybody knows how to. I shouldn't say knows how. Like, we're all just trying over here to be vulnerable and be open and support each other. And we are, I think that you and I do a good job. You do such a good job of, like, validating me and making me feel good. And you are so accepting of who I am. Oh my God, it makes me want to cry.
How could I not be? That's what's so funny.
I think that is something that people, like, recognize, and they feel watching this, maybe watching it if you're on Patreon, because you can watch this. With video of me about to cry. But if you're, like, listening to this, it makes people feel like they can also be maybe vulnerable or share or, like, you know, be a supportive friend or have a hard day or, like, get excited about nerdy things or get mad at the patriarchy or all that stuff that we do. I think it's, like, it feels so lucky, but I feel like we are not as alone as sometimes it feels like we are, because we have this wonderful... group of listeners.
We really do.
Community that's so fucking awesome.
And I'll see, like, other podcasters be like, I love the little community we created. Shut up! You have a dumb community. Our community's great. Yours is dumb.
This is where Susie and I are different. I'm like, well, their community is good for them. But, like, join ours because it's better.
It's better. And Sarah is drinking an adorable Aperol Spritz with a straw. She looks adorable.
Well, so here's the thing. I did the straw because the ice was making a lot of fucking noise whenever I went to go sip it. So I thought that would be less noisy, and it turned out more noisy.
Here, say cheers. I'm going to take your picture.
Cheers.
That's so cute.
We're drinking. Just like a little. It feels like, I mean, it's 2 p.m. over here.
Yeah, it's an afternoon
delight.
That's an
afternoon drink. I have nothing to do.
So nice. Thanks for spending your afternoon with me. Okay, what did I want to start with?
I have nothing to do. I have to record this podcast. What am I saying? Yeah. You know what I mean.
But I feel like a little lubrication never hurt nobody.
Never.
Okay. First,
except in one of my therapy episodes when, like, it's funny because somebody left a review and they were like, what happened to Sarah in episode 3? Is she drunk? And I'm like, nope, I'm not, because we recorded that really early in the morning, and I am definitely sober during that. So I don't know what.
Listen to This Changes Everything episode 3
Don't.
Just to
That's the
figure
worst
out.
one. It's the most cringy.
But that's the one where they thought you were drunk.
4, 5, and 6 are so good.
I want to
5
see
and
why
6 are
she
the
thought
best.
you were drunk.
Yeah, because I was nervous, and it's just me being me. I think because I was like, what even are feelings? And they were like, and then Jeff laughed, and then I think people were like, she must be drunk. Nobody talks like that. Actually, I do. Sober.
God,
I haven't even started drinking this drink yet. I'm like 2 sips in.
We are so lucky to be here today with Sarah.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, first step is that I wanted to talk about. Okay, I guess this is twofold. The first part of the story is, well, should we talk about my lips and what happened or not?
Hey, they're your lips. I'm not going to pry, but
I just wanted you all to know, if you were following my lip filler journey, you know how influencers call everything a journey?
yes, it is a journey.
Well, it was quite a nightmare for a second. And about 36 hours after it was all over, it was fine. But, like, my God, what we do for, like, the patriarchy beauty standards.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what it is.
What was your... So, if anybody does not follow Susie or is not in our close friends, I think it was in your close friends that you posted this photo.
Well,
and
the photo was in close friends, yes.
Book club and everything. She had what one can only describe as an allergic reaction to the filler that made her lips...
They always swell. It's always
that's
like
normal. It like really looks like
Yeah.
crazy duck lady for like 24,
12
48 hours.
Yeah, like,
but then
by the next morning, you're like, it's fine. It's passable as human.
yeah.
But this was extreme. And my son said to me, like, I go, what if they explode? Which, it's weird to have a 10-year-old in your house witnessing this and for you to have to say, oh, I inject my lips with hydraulic acid because I have bought into patriarchal beauty standards.
But everyone is beautiful, and don't judge other people, and you're great just the way you are. Don't change a thing.
I mean, I talk openly. I'm like, I'm trying to look pretty. I know it's crazy. Like,
it's not any different than people. Like, to me, it feels like when you really break it down.
Yeah.
This is an accessory. This is, I
call it performing beauty.
Totally. Ooh.
Because it is. We're all performing.
It is performing beauty.
Yeah.
And in the same way, there are different types of performances, like different dances you could do. I think about you doing anything like fillers or Botox, whatever, and me getting tattoos and pierced up to explain the difference.
I see what you're saying.
It's another way of modifying their body and changing it from its original form to, I don't know, adorn it, make it
it's for
more
social capital,
customized, make you fit in some, whatever it is, personal preference. And then you get to that age where like, oh, my tattoos are for me. I'm like, yeah, but I still like want to fucking look good, and I think that looks super hot when you like so. And if it's your lips that make you feel that, fucking inject that shit. Who cares?
I pointed out, I think it was in our Zoom live on Patreon, that it does seem funny to me that we do put people like Dolly Parton and Cher on this pedestal and love that they perform beauty in that extreme way, but that when younger people do it, it's seen in a different way because it is different. It is about like the mating ritual and wanting people to think you're something, whatever.
Ooh.
It's all related.
Could it be? It's almost like your. How do I even describe this? Like when you do it and you're younger, you're trying to maybe in somebody's eyes trick somebody.
Yeah.
When you do it when you're older, you're just trying to.
It's like a costume.
It's a costume, or it's almost because we've erased older people from society. Like we just hide them. We say like, this is not beautiful. We don't. So it's almost like, oh, good. You're making yourself more the way that we accept you, we'll allow it. But if you're doing it when you're younger, where you're you already are in this acceptable category.
The danger
you're just
zone
trying to trick people.
The danger zone for me is between 40 and 60. Because younger, people just think they're beautiful. Men are always tricked into thinking, oh, they're not wearing any makeup. Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
They're not doing Botox. Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
And from 40 to 60, that's when it looks like you're white knuckling it and trying to pretend like you're something you're not.
Yeah.
And then after you're 60, everyone's like, yeah, you're an old bat. Who cares? Whatever.
Right. So, okay, Susie, you are perfectly kind of explaining what I've been experiencing. When I put on more makeup now, I feel like it makes me look ridiculous and, in a way, older.
Yeah.
Because I'm right on that cusp of like, it's like, oh, what are you doing?
Housewives.
It's better if I just wear like, no makeup, tinted moisturizer, and throw some mascara on. Or if I
go full glam, like drag queen.
Right. There's no just a little bit in between. It looks almost like I'm trying too hard in a way.
Yes. And that is exactly what I'm doing, everyone. Okay?
And actually, now that you mention it, totally what I did. I had 4 extra free hours before a party that Eli and I went to with the family, and he was like, "Whoa, makeup!" And I was like, "Okay, yes, we did this. Now it's a thing." For fuck's sake! And it took me hours. So I was like, "Who has this time? Not me."
No, it's fun to try that stuff, but it does put a mirror up to your face when you do have an incident, whether it was when my hair fell out from the bleach or the hyper swollen lips or whatever will happen in the future, which is inevitable.
Yeah, I had a botched Botox job once that made me look like
what?
a Joker.
No.
It's in some of our photos.
You had a lazy eye or something? What?
No, just
droopy?
more very pointy brows that were ooh, it looked like.
Is that botched or is it awesome?
Yeah, I will say when I got done, you're like, no, you look refreshed and great.
You look refreshed.
In my mind, I was like, whoa, I look surprised.
I'll tell you what I'm surprised at is that you guys have not checked out Pear Eyewear yet.
What are you doing?
What are you waiting for?
This is the perfect time to do it because holidays are coming up. And anybody who knows me knows that I love a theme. Look at my nails right now. We've got spooky skeleton nails.
Yes, very cute.
What would be cuter?
Nothing.
Than spooky skeleton nails is matching glasses.
To
go with it. And don't worry if you're like, Sarah, I can't buy skeleton glasses. That would be cuckoo crazy. I can't have those forever. Don't worry. You can just pop off the frames.
Yes.
Pop on a different color. Oh, you want black? Oh, you want sunglasses? Oh, you want Christmas? Oh, you want your teacher and you want cute little rulers and pencils and apples? They have that. There you go. Whatever
yes. Because, so Pear Eyewear, you do the virtual try on. So you get to try on all the frames and pick what you love. But then you can choose these magnetic tops. They go, and then they pop on.
They really do make that noise.
Yeah.
That's very good sound effects. We didn't add that. That was natural.
That was free, yes. They pop onto your base frames, and then you can color coordinate.
Yeah.
You can be quirky eyeglass girl.
Yes. This is think Miss Frizzle.
Yes. I love them, but mostly I loved how easy it was. The virtual try-on. That I hate going into the store. You look like a lunatic trying on stuff. So this was you try them on, you pick the ones you want, and then you can get all these fun, whimsy-filled tops.
Or if you just want regular, you get regular.
I got regular.
Black, tortoiseshell, and then ones that pop on their sunglasses.
Yeah.
Because I really liked that. I like the option of
I love it.
Outdoor, indoor.
They start at just $60 too. So this isn't going to break the bank. This is affordable, fun, wonderful eyeglass company. Because they're they're breaking up the old monopoly. I don't know if you heard, but there was a whole eyeglass monopoly. Get glasses as ever-changing as you are with Pear. Go to paireyewear.com/braincandy for 15% off your first purchase. That's 15% off, PAIR, eyewear.com/braincandy. Okay. Here's what I wanted to start with. I had watched on Hulu a quote-unquote documentary about Richard Simmons. And
is this Looking for Richard Simmons or something like that? Or
that's a
Richard
podcast.
Simmons is missing? Oh, got it.
which was very popular because he basically fell off the face of the earth, and people were like, what happened to this guy?
Right.
And so basically it's the documentary version of, I guess, that podcast.
Now, you put in quotes. Air quotes.
It was produced by TMZ.
Oh,
that
please
should tell you everything. So this is not well made. This is one of these dealies where they just put a bunch of things together, clips that already exist, and then a couple people like reading a script saying like, yeah, and then he felt really upset about whatever. And it's not authentic in any way. So this isn't like a well-made documentary or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I liked it because I wanted to get the scoop on what is the deal. Everyone's been so worked up about Richard Simmons. Where did he go? Well, okay. So basically they made the argument using archival footage of previous interviews and things he's done to say that this is a guy who poured his heart out for like 30 years in the public eye. And you know how he would always like cry?
Yeah.
He was very emotional.
Yeah.
And then if you like, I guess people would contact him. I know my friend Kelly did one time to help her friend, and he personally writes them back.
Wow.
And it's not just one time, like there's a back and forth. And imagine how many people are contacting Richard Simmons to talk about their own weight issues or body issues, and then, or maybe their friend, like my friend Kelly did. And it's like, dude, you needed boundaries because.
Well, I was just thinking that in my mind. Boundaries in one, struggling with boundaries seems to be a thing.
You mean as like a human?
Yeah.
Human experience.
Like human experience, and I think in his life. Like I think that in the same way when you are somebody who struggles with addiction, that oftentimes that addiction can like transfer to maybe something else. Like, okay, I don't drink anymore, but now I'm obsessed with working out or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think he struggled with boundaries around food when he was younger, and then those maybe the same kind of feeling of fulfillment and satisfaction and gratification and serotonin, dopamine,
like addiction
and all that.
transfer.
Yes, that he got from
to helping
food.
people.
I think yes.
Wow, that is so insightful, and you're right. That makes sense. And they did not put it as astutely as you have.
Oh, TMZ did not come to that conclusion? Oh, I am so shocked.
Right. It was more like,
how on earth could that have happened?
I mean, essentially, I think anybody that saw Richard over the 80s, 90s could see that this is a guy who was like a little unhinged. But it was really beautiful because he was so loving and fun. Yeah.
I think he was somebody who probably had high emotional reactivity.
What is that exactly? Like, how do you define
like it? When you feel things, you feel them a lot. When you have an emotion, you have it intensely.
Yeah.
And we are we are like wise mind, sense of self, is in control of that nozzle on emotions, on like the water spout of emotions, if you want to kind of imagine it like that. And sometimes people struggle with how much or little to turn that gauge, to how much to let out. And so oftentimes it's because there can be, it's like high highs and low lows almost. And I can kind of see that. Like he experiences things very intensely. And if you have those big emotions, there's always a swing.
Well, and I think those people who, maybe if we called them highly sensitive people, that they tend to, they might have a higher propensity for addiction because of those extreme natures and also the need to like calm the tide.
On both ends. I want to feel a lot, and then now I feel a lot, I need to feel less.
Turn it down.
I need to turn it down. And so, I can definitely see that. And so,
So like what he had, like in West Hollywood, he had a studio. I think it was called Richard Simmons. I think it was like, because my friend Tim, he would go do aerobics at Slimmons. And sometimes Richard would come, and it was always like a scene. And, of course, the gays love him and all that jazz. But then one day he just put up a sign, and it was like, you know, we're going to be closed for a while due to, like, I think he had like hip replacement or some sort of medical thing. Yeah. But then he just never came back. And some people speculate that he didn't want anyone to see him less than fit. Yes. So if you can't work out and you have medical situations where you can't exercise, that is part of his identity. It's part of his brand. So I'm sure that added to it. But it's just strange that he never even goes out to dinner, that he just lives with his housekeeper, who some people have said is like elder abuse because it's so weird. Yeah. But I think maybe he just is a private guy and he always had parts of this. Mm-hmm. And then it just like caught up with him.
And maybe if there was a physical ailment or something that happened to his body that made it so he couldn't do the things that allowed him to be that support for other people or feel that connection in his mind. Like he could have still, you know, with just being who he is and them watching old videos of whatever. But in his mind, thinking that he maybe can't provide that, maybe it affected his self-worth. And then is feeling like that, I don't know, maybe he hasn't come up with the new thing to offer, so he's kind of going.
It feels like he went from all to nothing, which is an addictive thing.
High highs, low lows.
Yeah,
that it's you know.
But it sure is weird. But it just made me think about how I had read this article. I think it was in the Hollywood Reporter, and it was talking about how documentaries are so much more popular now.
Yes. I was thinking this as soon as you said TMZ produced a documentary. I'm like, what is going on?
Right. Okay. And I think the demand is surging.
Susie.
Yes.
This is what is happening.
Tell me.
Remember what reality television used to be?
Yeah.
And they used to call it documentary. And they like John Murray does and says that he's a documentarian and like this is him. So what happened is they recognized people's real lives are fascinating to us.
Yeah.
So they created a genre around it. Then that genre became so like oversaturated and also watered down and produced.
Yeah.
It stopped being what it was. But people still craved what reality TV was, which was authenticity. And so then, oh my gosh, don't you see it? When the production value on documentaries went up, people's attention started going to them. It's like, I was wondering, I'm like, am I just getting older and like documentaries more? Or has all of society started like, and I think it's the latter. Yeah. And so that, I think that the same thing that reality TV provided 20 or 30 years ago, documentaries are providing now.
Yeah.
And people are thirsty for that. And then in the same way, we saw reality television become more produced in order to meet the demands of people wanting the extreme and blah, 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 blah. We are seeing the same thing happen with documentaries. And why that's dangerous is because it is going to make us question what is the truth and what is. It's the same thing that, oh my God, I watched that episode, the third episode of the Bling Ring thing. You were right.
Yeah.
Those producers were cringy.
In our 15 Minutes of Blame, I talked about how one of the people involved in the Bling Ring, which was robberies of celebrities, happened to be making a pilot for E! At the time. And so they, in this docuseries, interviewed some of the producers from that reality show. And it was disgusting.
Disgusting. They are fame hungry, want to be on TV and themselves. It was so a perfect example of what is happening in that world. And I think that something similar could be happening in the documentary world now. Because I feel like there was some documentary watched a while back, and I said, I felt like this is too soon. Like, we don't have the whole story here, and they're just forcing this out. And I think it was that con artist guy who...
Tinder swindler?
Tinder swindler. I was like, that swindler guy. Oh, yeah, Tinder swindler.
That swindler.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was like, this doesn't feel like the full... And it feels, even though it's a real story, it just is like...
It didn't get to ferment and...
Yes, we're trying to create reality TV, what reality TV was with these documentaries, and it's really...
It's consequential. And the article was saying how, like, a documentary typically is expected that 10 minutes in a documentary takes about a month to edit. So in post-production, 10 minutes takes a month. And so you'd get a 9-month edit schedule. And now the edit schedules are between 5 and 6 months. Because they need to churn them out faster, which means sloppier work. It means cutting corners.
Yep.
They're starting to pay participants, which has never been what happens in documentaries, because that...
right. It changes people's... Because you don't get an authentic... You get somebody performing. When I watched Sins of Our Mother, I felt like that son was performing.
Well, we got to look into it, but people have been messaging me saying that he was arrested for sexual assault or battery right before that came out. And I don't know.
I think it was creepy vibes from him.
His wife. Yeah, I think you're onto something there.
I do. There's something I get where I'm like,
something ain't right.
Yep.
You were right about that.
Feel it.
Wow. Sometimes they're fan fiction.
I know.
It really, it's not wrong.
I know.
But now...
Somewhere there is a dad at medieval times.
Right.
If you guys don't know what I'm talking about.
The divorced dad.
Past episodes on medieval times. It was very funny.
The documentarians are starting to hire story producers, which if you're not familiar, is what is used in reality TV to make story out of things there are no stories involved. Yes.
Yep. There you go.
Right. It's so disturbing.
We need to come.
They're starting to frank and bite, which is what reality shows do. And so I guess because I'm a documentary lover, I wanted to encourage our audience to be judicious about what they're viewing and like think about who produced it and why. And like an example of like a traditional documentarian would be Ken Burns. And a lot of his documentaries would be way too slow for most viewers of Netflix, but he does like World War II, the Holocaust, baseball. He has a whole documentary series on baseball. Mm-hmm. And that was the one exception he made to paying his participants. He paid the Negro League players because he felt like nobody should be profiting off these guys anymore.
Good.
Without compensating them. So that was the only exception he made.
Good.
And then HBO and CNN, they still refuse to pay their subjects because they are journalists. They're following journalistic standards. But most places will be fine if you pay like Hulu, Netflix, all that jazz. Okay.
Well, I mean, I this is like a completely different subject, but I do want to say about Netflix paying things. Like, they're not paying people for the documentaries, or they are paying people for the documentaries, but I'm kind of mad at them for not paying people like like Jeffrey Dahmer's victims or the families of his victims, where they're taking the exact likeness of the person, their exact words, and a lot of them are black women, and not paying them a single fucking penny for basically creating a character and profiting off of what like they
re-traumatizing.
I hate that. So
and they didn't even ask permission. That was really what the family was.
I like refuse to watch it because I'm like mad. About
I didn't watch it either.
It's fucked up. Good.
Let's talk about how we're so excited to be partnering with a company called Julie.
Yes, this is the freaking best. I teared up and cried when I found out. I'm not even kidding when I found out this was one of our sponsors because I'm so excited for this.
And if you don't believe us, if you're a patron, you can watch this video. She did it while we were recording before we started recording the audio. Because, okay, Julie is a morning after pill. If you're not familiar, a morning after pill stops pregnancy before it starts. So this is a preventative product. It's FDA approved. It is an emergency contraception. So let's be clear about what that is and how important it is that people have access to contraception and family planning, right?
Yes.
These choices are complex, they're stressful, and they affect the most vulnerable people far more than the people with access to everything. So Julie stops your body from releasing an egg using the same active ingredient as Plan B. Essentially, Julie works by preventing or delaying your ovulation. With no egg, there's no fertilization and therefore no pregnancy, and it's no risk to future fertility.
Yes.
This is all good news.
Yes.
You can find Julie at Walmarts across the United States of America, or you can order online to have it for the future, just in case.
Like maybe holidays are coming up. Maybe you have siblings. Maybe you want to put this in their stockings. I did this.
Sarah said she used to do this for her brothers, which is genius. I love it.
It's great.
It's legal in all 50 states. You don't need an ID. You do not need a prescription, and you do not need a credit card to get it. You can go to juliecare.co to learn more or find Julie at your nearest Walmart today. That's juliecare.co to learn more. Love it. So honored to be working with them.
It's so wonderful and so, I don't know, heavy that we have to get so excited. Like that it feels like, wow, a little bit of power to make our own choices about things that we want, and even just like contraception.
It's just contraception. Can't
come on,
emphasize that enough.
Right.
Okay.
Freaking condom at 7-Eleven. What the heck? Anyways.
Actually, it's funny that you brought up Jeffrey Dahmer, actually, because I did not watch that series on Netflix, which is very popular right now, but I have read Lionel Dahmer's book, which is his dad.
Yes.
And I've watched a lot of interviews with him. He was on Oprah. He was on Larry King. He's still alive, a really remarkable person. I think a lot of people, including me, whenever I hear somebody's done these terrible things, I assume, like, what happened? What went wrong? What did your parents do? How were you traumatized? And, these things are complicated, and there's so many things that can happen in the course of a life. But his dad was a scientist and a very gentle-seeming person who probably took the approach of a lot of dads in the 70s where, like, you earn the paycheck and you are nice to your kid and you play with them, but, like, you're not the way it is.
This was a time they didn't allow dads in the delivery room when they were, like, having babies. Like, imagine how disconnected from that whole even child experience you are when you're like, no, you don't even have to come in here. You just
There were different expectations for sure.
Totally.
But considering that, he was still very involved and loving parent. And when he wrote his book, he wanted to sort of like, his idea was to prevent this. So he named some things that he could recall that looking back, he's like, now I see them through a totally different lens.
What were some of those things?
He named, like, one time they had like a vermin problem with like something similar to like a raccoon. I forget what the name is, but it was killing like pests. And so they had to go under the house and like get all the dead animals. And he was putting the bones into a bucket to like just retrieve them. And Jeff showed a lot of interest in the bones. Nothing that scared the dad, but looking back, of course, you think, that's like a lot of interest.
Peculiar curiosity.
Yeah. And like, he didn't know it at the time, but during the trial, he found out that like when they would go fishing and they would catch a fish, that Jeff was very interested in the innards of the creatures. But then what I thought about with him and with John Wayne Gacy, they both murdered people that they were sexually involved with. And funnily enough, since we talked about it last time, Jeff picked up his first guy as a hitchhiker. But I think that
Uber stopping murders since 2000, whatever.
Right. But it seems like there was probably a lot of shame regarding their sexuality.
Yes, for sure.
And so
that's probably a huge.
I don't think that that's a coincidence. And because of that shame, maybe early on, their wires got crossed. I don't know the details, but it seems like that is an important thing to note.
For sure.
And
different. That's like a standout in. It's a different kind of rage or a different kind of anger.
Yeah.
That's maybe directed,
towards self-loathing. Yeah. And then it reminded me of, I loved the book Columbine, and there was a TED Talk by Dylan Harris's mom, one of the Columbine shooters.
Yeah.
And she talked about how, like, she wished that she had gone through her kids' like room more, and when she found something or when there was an incident, took it more seriously instead of thinking,
if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
Like for real.
And like, don't make excuses for your kid, which I know from experience that is definitely an instinct to be like, to want to think, well, they probably did it for this reason. But not that you can't do that, but just to not brush it away.
Well, recognize that the brain's job is to protect itself. The brain's job is to protect itself from even harsh realities. So it is a parent's instinct, like you said, to say, no, they couldn't have done that, because that's the brain protecting itself from what that reality really looks like.
Yeah, which is probably really painful.
Like the most painful. My grandmother is a very, very religious woman. And she, despite all my attempts to have real conversations with her, never was able to recognize the ways that her son had hurt me and the reality of the situation. And so it was easier for her and for her own...
Well, because she would have to do the narrative and also look at her, her own...
Look at herself. What did I do that created this? If that is true, then I messed up somewhere. And that is a reality that people can't even entertain. Like, instinctive, like our brain can't do it. This isn't intentional. It's not like somebody says, oh, I'd like to not look at that. Their brain protects them from that in the same way that when my mom had her accident where she broke like fucking every bone in her body, she can't remember what happened even before she left her brain is like blocked out a whole chunk. Cause it's like, no, you can't, you will not be able to survive this. So their brains, we don't get to decide what it thinks and what it does. It'll just automatically do it. I always tell clients, you're not responsible for your first thought or first feeling. You are responsible for your second thought and first action. Mm-hmm. So you can have that first thought of and unless you have the second thought that challenges that, that's going to be the one that you hold on to, and they can't. It's an automatic thought that they nope, nothing happened, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Can't see it.
So it to me is a reminder that even though it can be really painful, that maybe life's not turning out the way you hoped, or your child is troubled in some way, that it's worth investigating and not sweeping under the carpet, because who knows what could have happened if Jeffrey or John Wayne Gacy or the Columbine shooter had experienced some sort of intervention that, like the asteroid, put them on a different path.
Totally.
Like,
think about the times where you've been maybe alone in your own thoughts and you just create a narrative that is one way. Oh my gosh, I'm the worst. I'm whatever it is. And then you talk to one other person, a friend or a partner or a colleague, and they're like, no, you're fine. Like, that is, you don't have to worry about that. And you're like, oh, you're right. Imagine if whatever you're experiencing was so shameful or so, in your mind, unshareable, that you just lived with that and you didn't have anybody else kind of validate you or make you feel like, oh yeah, that's a human, that's fine, it's okay. That we tend to intensify. Yes, we'll intensify it if we don't have somebody to jump in and challenge it. And that's why we need parents who are attuned to their children. That's why maybe a father at that time who's not attuned to the needs of their kids and who is distant isn't able to pick up on that as well as he should have. And I would imagine there might be something going on with mom where she was a little more checked out or see? Okay.
Yeah, she had some mental health issues and stuff. But lots of people, it's always that story of like, well, lots of people have a dad that just worked and really wasn't like super lovey-dovey. And lots of people have a mom who's a little, but he had the recipe.
Right.
And you don't know whether you or your child does.
Right.
So don't ignore it.
I always think about, even though I don't frequently go scuba diving, I can't tell you how often I refer in my mind to the training that I did for scuba diving, where in a indoor pool, 12-foot deep pool, for hours and for 6 weekends, however long it was that I did it, you practice the worst case scenario.
Yes.
In hopes that you anticipate the worst case scenario in hopes that the worst case scenario doesn't happen.
Well, when I saw Chris Rock, he did a whole bit about how like when Donald Trump became president and how like truthfully most of us could probably be president unless something goes wrong, like a pandemic.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's what you're saying.
Right.
That anyone can scuba dive.
Right. Until something goes wrong, and then it's like, oh, shit. Right.
You have to have the skills for when the unthinkable happens.
Right. So it is very rare that there is that perfect recipe for potential serial killer.
Yes.
Totally.
Right.
But
wouldn't
it be great if we all had the awareness or the parenting skills or the, I would say, emotional intelligence to recognize self-destructive, harmful, predictive behavior?
That's not really possible because most people are fucking annoying, but like ill-equipped, Yeah. But when I talk to all these killers, a lot of them say if the school system had resources.
Oh.
Right?
Yep.
Because then you have an intervene situation.
Totally.
And not punitive, not criminal. You don't want people locked up. You want someone to be rehabilitated before they even become a problem.
Yeah. Because that's all it takes is maybe one good teacher, one good school psychiatrist.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah, but we're a long way from that. But anyway, I just find it
interesting. I have a friend who's a school psychiatrist, and they just, I couldn't believe this. State of California.
Tell me.
My friend Jessie was a teacher. Well, now she's in Colorado, but shout out to Jessie. She went to a teacher conference where it was when teachers went on strike in California, and I was like, what are you going on strike for? And she said, one of the things we're fighting for? A change in the ratio of of teachers and students to school counselors. You know what the ratio they settled on was?
What?
500 to 1. Because it was fucking worse before that.
Wow.
The fact that one school psychiatrist is responsible, or school therapist, counselor, is responsible for 500.
You might as well have zero.
I mean, how? And it's not like every single one of those people have a problem, but that is like what they say. Oh, yeah, of 10% of these probably have an issue. So what? Then you have 50 clients? That's still too much. Like, it's insane what's on their plate. We do not have enough resources. And then remember we talked about many podcast episodes ago about how they weren't allowing mindfulness in school because it was too close to Buddhist practices, and a bunch of Christian fucking religious nuts with a stick up their ass were getting all angry about this. Come on.
That actually is a good segue to my next topic, which is CJ, a brainiac, sent me this article. I was so psyched to read it, and I can't believe I didn't see it on my own. It was a New York Times article exploring that fucking weird moment in the 80s and 90s when therapists started getting super into repressed memories.
Yeah.
Nightmare. Mm-hmm. And
I went to a whole seminar on this.
What are they saying now to you guys?
About what? Repressed memories?
Yeah. Are they still like, yeah, I find those? Or are they like, that was a bad idea?
Well, it's not as... memories are not as pulled out of people. They're more organically brought to the surface by the client.
Mm-hmm.
The client goes, like, I know it's certain things like EMDR. I did EMDR, and it was like a key that unlocked a whole bunch of memories that I had stored away to kind of protect myself as a child, but it allowed me the opportunity to process them as an adult, but they were absolutely my own. They weren't
like they were present all along, but you weren't
yes.
like going to think about them or explore them.
And it wasn't something that was like put there by a therapist. There were, it was like,
but I think that's a nuance that a lot of dum-dums don't really know the difference between what you're describing versus these lunatics in the 80s and 90s who were like, I got hypnotized and turns out I was gang raped. Like these crazy, violent memories that they had never knew about or thought about ever before. And so this article was so helpful because it was like, okay, do you remember that book that I talked about on the show called, and I interviewed the author. The book is called Sleeping Beauties. And the author talks about in the book how things that are, we would typically label like psychosomatic. You know, sometimes people classify certain like chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia, things that, migraines even, things that tend to affect women.
When I Googled dust mites and my allergic reaction to that, there was a whole bunch that came back on psychosomatic reaction to like feeling like there's bugs crawling on you and feeling like there's, and I'm like, nah. But that's another that I had one doctor who thought it was psychosomatic. And then when I brought in the piece of tape with the fucking dust mite on it, they were like, oh yeah, actually that is dust mite.
It's actually real.
I was like, I'm going to have to get evidence for these fuckers. Okay.
Well, a lot of these things that are confusing to physicians and even confusing to patients are dismissed as like, it's all in your head, just whatever, which the author, Suzanne O'Sullivan is her name, Suzanne O'Sullivan, said it's true and false. Like, it's all in your head in the sense that there is no cancer or something that's causing the symptom, but it's real in the sense that nobody's faking.
Correct.
That there are things that cause people to believe that whatever they're feeling is real, whatever. So, they were describing how, like, sometimes, like, cultural influences. I'll actually read her. Let me read her quote so I don't mischaracterize. We embody narratives, she explained. Some are told to us by powerful people, doctors, politicians, activists, public figures, celebrities. If a model for illness is vivid enough and the basis for the illness is sufficiently salient, it is easily internalized by the individual and then passed from person to person. So if you think about this issue of, like, you know,
all of diagnosis, all mental, it fits into that.
If you go to a therapist and they're like, but are you sure you didn't something happen to you? And they start like suggesting, the human mind is pretty malleable.
Correct. Yes. If people who you trust, who are in positions of power,
and that's what happened.
That is what I mean of, like, it's not therapist induced. It's not like therapists going, what do you, it's not at all.
Back then, it was.
Then
because
it was,
of like
for
movies
sure.
like Sybil. Do you remember that movie with the multiple personalities?
Yeah.
Which
Just
afterwards, it was based on a true story, which was then debunked, but it was too late.
Because it's like not a thing. We get like,
but all of a sudden at that time, people started being like, I had trauma and now I have several personalities. And they weren't lying. They believed it.
Right.
But this article was an opinion article. So it was cautioning mental health professionals to be aware about that.
There was a lot of pushback in my class when we talked about this.
About the multiple...
Not this... this kind of subject.
Okay, let's hear it.
But if you look at studies of women in different cultures on menopause, that is not something that is universally experienced.
Okay.
That is something that...
What do you mean? Menopause? People keep bleeding forever?
No. I mean the things that come with menopause.
Oh.
And I think that there were some that there was information on like this shift that happened that like changes in, I don't know, behavior, personality, or experiences, that a lot of these things were things that we societally almost like expect as we age. And maybe there's more of a psychological connection to the ending of our menstrual cycle and what that does to our identity as women and the symptoms that come with that. And if you are in a culture that has more respect and appreciation for the elderly, they don't have premenstrual symptoms in the same way. Like collectivist cultures don't experience the same intensity the way Western cultures do.
Come on.
I didn't believe it either. I was like, I remember like getting like, I'm like, nope, there's no way. That's totally, it's a thing. And it wasn't consistent.
Well, then I'm going to have it super bad because like, I definitely don't want to get old.
Right. You're getting all this. I'm already having I have premenopause disorder right now.
Sarah's
whatever.
Perimenopausal right now.
Yes.
At the age of 36.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Don't laugh. I had a friend who went in, it was premenopausal or perimenopausal, whatever it's called, at 40 something. 40.
Oh yeah. No, that's
a thing.
Unheard of for sure. But you're only 36.
I know. I always round up. I'm fucking like my mom gave me one the other day. She gave me one of those, what do you know? Or you'll understand when you're older things.
Yeah.
And I was like,
will I?
How much older? Like, do I need to get? We're already at the I can't thread a needle without glasses.
I think I'm having a hot flash right now just thinking about it.
All the time I do. Like, I mean, like, yeah, those are real, but you know.
Okay. So
it's funny.
I don't know.
Every single menopausal woman is going to call like write in and be like, "What? My symptoms are..." Look, I'm telling you, this was something that I learned in my sex and reproduction class, or the sexual health class, and I was like, I don't believe it. And I remember being so mad that week, but then like the studies were fucking right.
Well, this article pointed out how in America, in the West, we have an egocentric view of, the individual culture. We have this idea that our minds are all powerful, right? That we can just will ourselves out of depression. We can just, will ourselves to feel a certain way. And so the Western cultures are very resistant to accepting the idea that maybe you actually weren't abused, like these memories aren't real, that you've been, your mind has been manipulated, right? Blah, blah, blah.
Why that gets so tricky is that one of the symptoms of being like childhood abuse is your mind denying it actually happening in order to try to protect itself. So there have been many times where my mind has been like, maybe that didn't happen. Maybe you just made it all up. Maybe that's... And then it goes, no, remember this, remember this, remember this, remember this, remember this, remember this. And then I go to a therapist to talk about it. I'm like, fuck, no, that's real. And,
I get, how we always say like self-awareness is the antidote. It's almost like if you think you might be losing it, you're not.
Right. Right. It's
Like,
like that's what I would
crazy
say. If you
people never
think you're
they're crazy.
right, that's what I would say about with parents. I'm like, guys, if you're worried, oh my God, I'm going to be the worst parent. Don't worry, you're already better than the worst parents because they are like thinking that they're the best and don't have to change a thing.
Yeah. There's
nobody out there that's perfect and doesn't have to, like, if we're not constantly on the journey towards like bettering ourselves, even if it's like in little way, like, isn't that like the point?
Yeah.
Just like, even if it's like, I don't know, get fucking better at, I don't know, whatever you play, bridge, do that.
I mean, okay. So like it said how 20% of people surveyed who went to treatment sometime in the past 5 decades reported being treated by therapists who suggested the possibility that the client had repressed memories of abuse. You should not really be
no. You should not be suggesting
that.
Fucking anything. There's an old school of therapists that's like,
yeah.
And here's the thing. They're not doing their job. This is why we have CEUs. This is why we have continuing education units that you're required to get in order to maintain a license. This is exactly why you have to go, because we learn more things. Studies change. And I think maybe there was that one client who did have memories that they, repressed in some way, and they were real. But then, and you get all that like, oh yeah, that worked. That was amazing. And you want to almost recreate that same experience in future clients. And that's not a good approach to have.
Yeah. But in every field, the
So
joke, there's some bad apples. Yeah. But, I just think like, I don't know. I just want people to be aware of it and just sort of like, because do you remember like at that time, Roseanne was probably the prime example of somebody who claimed that she had these repressed memories and her dad had sexually abused her. Mm-hmm. She went on all these talk shows. She wrote a book about it. And then later was like, oh, whoops. No, he didn't. I was wrong. And then now they've reconciled and stuff.
Wow. I just feel like what I know myself, my own story, and like there is no.
Yeah, no.
It would be the opposite.
I'm
it would
not
almost
trying to
be like
you,
if
by the
you. Way. Oh no, I know this.
Okay.
But like how different that feeling is for anybody who maybe like goes, well, was mine a repressed? No. Like how different those two are. That if I sit and think about it, if I were to write a book that said, oh, nothing happened, my conscience would eat me alive because it would be like, that's things did. My conscience says, it keeps reminding me like,
yeah,
this did, just so you
Nobody's
know.
like
you're
suggesting it to you.
Nobody's
suggesting. In fact, I feel
opposite.
like you've, yeah.
The
Even I've been
opposite.
like, are you sure? I mean, that probably happens to you a lot, and nobody's being like, but did he touch you?
Right.
Nobody's
the
doing
opposite.
That.
They're like, no, he did. I'm like,
I could have sworn.
I can describe how things were positioned on the nightstand.
Yeah.
Like I can still draw that room. I think about that all the time, like how burned in there that those memories are.
I know. And you've shared some of those details with me, and they're so specific and they're so like mundane.
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is, because we remember, what do they call it? It's called, oh my God, there's 2 types of, this is exactly what happens in trauma, is that you remember the,
like people will say,
details.
like I stared at the tiles and I counted
you remember
how many dots there
something
were.
details. I can't, it's like central details or peripheral details. You only remember peripheral details.
Right.
I only remember like the water bottle was this color.
Yes.
And this, but I don't remember the thing. I can't remember it because your brain is like, no.
Wow, that's so interesting. I can think of
peripheral versus central details. You
anyway.
can remember the color of the sheets, what the spots on the ceiling looked like, the lighting in the room, how something smelled, but you can't remember what led up to it because or the actual anybody who is a survivor knows exactly what we're talking about. So different.
Okay, we've said too much. We've gone on too long. So we'll wind it down. But thank you to the Brainiac who sent me that, CJ. That was such a great article, and I hadn't seen it, and I was so excited to read it. Let's perform some beauty and talk about, Richard Simmons. No, I'm just like winding it down.
Oh,
because we talked about performing beauty.
Got it.
Richard Simmons.
Got it. I was like,
poor guy.
Yes.
Let that guy alone. My God.
Yeah.
I do think it's weird to like just drop off the earth, but like, okay, just do that. You don't owe us anything, Richard.
He doesn't owe that. Right. That's it.
I used to do a bit in my act about how, like, what if Richard's... Because he's never, like, formally come out of the closet. Like, we all just know he is. And I used to do a bit in my act about, like, what if, like, this has been a big misunderstanding?
What if he's straight? What if
that's
what he was hiding?
I love pussy. Like, I did this whole thing about it. Because, like, wouldn't that be terrible? What if that's what he's sad about?
He's
that
sad
everyone
because
thinks he's gay. I can't. It's the wine's kicking in. Okay. Documentaries. Bling Ring. Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't know. We covered a lot, Sarah.
Yeah. It's so crazy that Bling. It was.
Yeah.
And to think that there is somebody in the Bling Ring. It's Diana. That's her name, Diane.
Okay.
She married.
No, Sarah.
A guy who went to camp with me and was like really close friends with my ex-boyfriend.
Sarah's friends with the Bling Ring.
I am.
Basically.
Yep. Had I stayed in that relationship, I guarantee I've been to a barbecue with her. I've been to a Halloween party with her.
Barbecue.
Yeah, I went to a 70s birthday party with a 70s themed birthday party.
Your life is very weird.
From Bling Ring.
That's crazy. Great.
I know.
At least you've never been to a barbecue with Jeffrey Dahmer.
At least.
That is not funny, Susan. Cannibal jokes are not funny. Okay, let's just move on and go on with our lives. Check out our merch. Subscribe. We love you guys.
Thank you so much for the good reviews.
We love you. Bye.
Bye.